virus is to put everybody out of work.
Well,
Doesn't work.
so
It's not.
let's look back at the Depression, because when I look back at
Sure.
the Depression, and I look back at what's written about FDR, if you look at historians and how the historians talk about FDR in these glowing terms, economists,
Mhm.
economists, and business people don't look at his policies in glowing terms, because they said every time the economy was getting ready to come out of the Depression, he would implement a new set of policies that forced them back into recession and then depression. So his liberal
Well,
socialist, policies in
Go
many
ahead. Finish
ways,
your thought.
his liberal socialist policies in many ways prolonged the Great Depression. I mean, think about it. This was a time my dad was a teenager and talked about being a hobo. He didn't go to school. He was hitchhiking on trains, and as were a number of other Americans, right? And people were standing in bread lines and soup lines, and there was just no work.
And soup kitchens.
Yeah, and you have FDR running around grinning and being chivalrous and being FDR, and I'm going, what? I'm thinking to myself, when I look at these caricatures of this guy and the Great Depression, man, if World War II hadn't come along, we'd probably still be going down this path of pseudo socialism.
Well, Charles, you and I haven't talked about what I'm about to tell you.
Okay.
But I sent you a note. I'm getting to your point. I sent you a note about 2 weeks ago that I finally finished the Abraham Lincoln book, which took 4.5 years to write. I took one day off to begin to write my next novel. And I did a lot of research from the standpoint of what sells in America today.
Okay.
The number one style of book is romance, and the number one theme for those books is the Depression and World War II.
Oh, okay.
Roosevelt.
Okay.
And
so
I've already
wrath.
written 19 chapters in the new book.
Okay. The Grapes of Wrath.
So
I'll never forget.
The book is called Sad Eyes, and it's a story of a young girl who's growing up in Waterloo, Iowa. She's born in 1916, and when she's a sophomore in high school, she decides she wants to be a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
And that she's making that decision in 1929, in the summer of 1929, before the market reaches its all-time high in September, and then crashes in October and continues to crash to create the Great Depression. And it's a story about her life and what she's done and the things that she saw and happened to her as she continues her education to become a nurse. She goes to Chicago to a nursing school,
right?
Graduates, gets a job working in a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And one of her graduate friends is in California and suggests she come to California in 1940. In 1940, she enlists to become an Army nurse. In late 1940, she meets a new Army Air Force graduate from flight school, and they both get reassigned to the Schofield Barracks in Honolulu, Hawaii.
Oh, what luck!
They get married on December the 1st, 1941, and on their honeymoon on December the 7th, the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
And she knows she has to go to the hospital, and he knows he has to go to the airfield. And they don't see each other again. And the story is, they agree that when they started to go to the hospital and to the airfield, they agreed every year they would come back to the hotel where they spent their honeymoon to finish the honeymoon. And for 10 years, she goes back and he's not there. He gets shot down, but the army can't find him. They don't know where he is. So she's dealing now. She's becoming engrossed in very much involved in nursing, working in the military hospitals, and dealing with the bureaucracy of Washington, D.C. So I'm tackling what you're talking about, Roosevelt, in a different set of eyes.
Roosevelt, Roosevelt had the 3 R's, recovery, relief for poor people, recovery for the economy, and his thing was to try to make sure that it didn't happen again. The 3 R's, and
Right.
I tell you, when Bill Clinton eliminated GATT, when Bill Clinton eliminated Glass-Steagall, I said we are going to have an economic crash. Now, Dan, I'm not a economist. I'm not a historian, a genius historian, but I know these things were put in place. Yeah. These things were put in place so that we would not experience Wall Street going crazy. Who eliminated those things?
Right.
Bill, and he's never. What you see, and this is the problem that we have with journalists today. They're so damn stupid. They don't do any research. How can you be a journalist and not love history? How can you be a journalist and write about an issue and not understand the history of that issue? So when you look at TV, which I rarely do today, but when you look at television, when you look at these people, they have no substance. They talk about stuff. They're like Al Sharpton. Al Sharpton talks about racism, but he has no basis. He has no substance. He has no intellect behind his words, his concepts, and they're generally way off base to begin with. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, having written 4 books on terrorism against the United States, and now the Lincoln assassination, and now working on Sad Eyes, I pride myself on the amount of time and research I spend on research, even though I'm writing fiction, to get the facts as accurately as I possibly can. And I agree with you. I don't think that the vast majority of journalists, as they're called today, are not journalists. They're theme writers. They've been given a theme to write about, and then they fill the space because somebody said, "I want you to support this particular thesis," and so they don't do their homework, and it's why so many newspapers, major Pulitzer Prize winning newspapers, have been embarrassed so many times in the Trump administration under the fake news, because they clearly didn't do their homework. And we've got a situation where the influence of Twitter, if it's on Twitter, it must be true. So therefore, reporters are using Twitter as a source without even validating or checking to see if what Twitter says is correct. But the thing about Roosevelt, go ahead.
The thing about Roosevelt.
The thing about Roosevelt is that as our generation has gotten older, we've gotten wiser and begun to really look at Roosevelt through different kind of glasses. And he's not the great savior, as you pointed out just a moment ago, that everybody would like to think that he was. He was clearly a racist. In terms of all those thousands and thousands of Japanese people in internment camps. So there's a lot of things that originated from him that were clearly socialist in their foundations and their execution, and the decisions that he made are now being scrutinized by an older group or new generation of historians, not young people, but people in our age group and perhaps a little younger, who are looking at all of the presidents in a totally different eye than we had in the past. But the reporters, not a chance.
Well, what I want to interject and add on to your comment is this: when I look at presidents, and to tell you the truth, I have, believe it or not, I have been following politics since Dwight David Eisenhower. And the reason I was so fascinated with Eisenhower was because of all of the highways that were being built and the civil rights movement. Because people forget that the real modern civil rights movement and legislation came under Eisenhower, not Kennedy, not Johnson, under Eisenhower. We had relatives in Arkansas. Right. So when the troops got sent into Little Rock and they were integrating the school in Little Rock where I had relatives, there was no damn Martin Luther King. There was no Jesse Jackson. There was no NAACP. The president did it because it was the right thing to do. That was his job as the president, to enforce. See, a president has three responsibilities: enforce the law. He can ask for a law. He can veto a law, and he can enforce the law. But other than that, we have a weak president. This guy comes along, Roosevelt. He comes along, and these Southern politicians, and as Roosevelt said, the first time I ever heard about anti-lynching laws, I was in college doing research for a paper, and I remember running across anti-lynching laws, and this is how it was tied in. FDR would not support anti-lynching laws in 1929 because he could never get his New Deal policies through the committees with the Southern Democrats, which the Southern Democrats held. So here I am in college as a young sophomore, junior, senior, and I'm doing this research. Right? See, people don't understand that going to college is not about parties and fraternities and just you got a degree. No, it's an experience. So those of us who actually go to college, we're actually on campus. It's a totally different experience than people who are commuter students. Even, I mean, when you're immersed in the university, it is truly a period of time in your life that you have unlike any other, as far as I'm concerned. And unless, of course, you're a researcher or, a professor or a writer like yourself, where you can actually, just delve into these things and just, soak up all this knowledge. And that's what college is about. It's about absorbing knowledge. And so I'm listening. Right. I'm going, okay, so Southern Democrats control the committees. What does that mean? Because you don't really understand how government works in high school history or high school civics or high school social studies. You really don't understand, I think, how government really works until you start getting into junior and senior courses in college and law school and places like that, where you really begin to understand that, you get a bill and this bill goes to committee and the committee works up the bill on both sides. Then it goes to the conference and the conference works on the bill. And then the bill gets presented, by whomever to the House or the Senate, and people vote on it. And then it goes to the president. People don't understand. You don't understand that as a kid growing up or as a young student because it's not taught to us. So I'm reading this stuff, man, and it is overwhelming me that, okay, he had to appease these Southern racist ass Democrats, and that's why he didn't want to. And so I'm reading this stuff in a book called 100 Years of Lynching. And the cover used to have black men hanging from trees on the cover when I was a kid. My book that's up here on my bookcase, 100 Years of Lynching, has black people hanging from trees, just like it was when I was in college. They've since changed it because it's not politically correct. But lynching was very commonplace in the South. If somebody wanted to screw your wife and you were in the way, they lynched your ass. I mean, nobody talks about that. A white man wanted to have sex with your wife or your daughter or your wife and your daughter and your son. He killed your ass. He lynched you. He and his friends got together and lynched you. And people never
Mm-hmm.
talk. And see, and you will never find black historians who step out because they're all paid. In order for them to make a living, they can never really tell the truth. There are very few black historians who sought to tell the truth about history here in America. But I'm getting off the point. So the point being, my point being, I'm reading this stuff about FDR and anti-lynching. We're still talking. These people of today are talking about anti-lynching laws. I'm listening to Joe Madison about 3 weeks ago, and he's talking about Trump passing an anti-lynching law. Blacks don't get lynched like they used to. We used to get hung from trees. 20, 30 black men used to die a week being hung from trees. What people don't understand, and what I understand because I read the history of Rosa Parks, was that Rosa Parks sitting on this bus was all staged, one. Two, Rosa Parks was the representative for the NAACP who went to lynchings and took pictures. She went to lynchings and took pictures of black men being hung from trees and the white people. And she talked about how these white people would cut off black folks' toes and their body parts, their penises, their fingers. And so, we used to have a little rhyme that went eeny, meeny, mighty, mo, catch blank, blank, blank by his toe. If he holler, let him go. Eeny, meeny, mighty, mo. And so never really understood that until one day my father sat me down and talked to me about where that all came from, taking body parts from black folks. But because my father was from the South. So, we have a history in this country to deal with that nobody really wants to step up and talk about or tell because one, it's uncomfortable. Two, people don't want to believe it. Like when I tell people, well, I've had guns pulled on me 12 times on traffic stops. And, I had a guy tell me, I'll never forget this guy. His name was Rob Morrell. If you Google Charles Butler threatens to punch Ron or Rob on YouTube, you'll see where I tell this guy, man, I will punch you in the fucking, if you were here, I would punch you in the face. And I meant it. He's going to tell me that my experiences with police officers were anecdotal. My, police pulling guns on me and, arresting me, putting me on top of cars and, just basically harassing me in front of chicks to prove that they had power. But what they didn't understand, Dan, was that a black man like me, and I think people are starting to understand this, and this is what I'm going to start to sell. Very shortly, I'm going to start to push this. When people randomly go after police officers, I think it's wrong. But there are police officers that are bad out here, and we know who they are. Nobody ever goes after those bad police officers. And those bad police officers need to be dealt with. Either the system deals with them or you deal with them vigilante style. I've dealt with bad cops, and we've dealt with them. We just happen to have anyway, the bottom line is this guy told me, Charles, your experience is anecdotal. I said, no, I can get on the phone and or email. We could do a poll, and I bet you 90% of black male professionals, and I'm not talking about criminals. See, you all want to talk about criminals. I'm talking about black male professionals like me, who's driving around in a Mercedes, who has on a naval officer's uniform, being pulled over, put on the hood of a car, and handcuffed. Like my friend who's a 3-star admiral who was driving his daughter from Orlando to New York, Columbia Law School, and had the cops pull him over because he was pulling a U-Haul. When he showed him his ID, they said, well, his ID is fake, put him on the top of the car and handcuffed him and had him bent over the car like a little faggot. That's what white cops do to black men. That's not hyperbole. That's not, that's not innuendo. That's not anecdotal. That's how some white cops treat black men. And you're subject to that bullshit. And there's no recourse. My friend, who's a 3-star admiral when this happened to him, like me, when those incidents happened to me, had no way to address those issues because black lives do not matter. That's what Black Lives Matter should be about. And that's what black folks are doing. They're taking it. And by the way, Dan, have you seen the stuff that's coming out of Chicago that where the local residents are repulsing Black Lives Matter in their marches?
Yeah, I also saw, I think it was on Sunday, the mayor praised the police for the way they acted in a disturbance on Sunday.
Well, they should have. They acted well.
Well, but you know, she's been very negative about the Chicago police.
Well,
and the other thing is that you know, you and I've had this conversation before. I understand now from your perspective why black people continue to vote for Republicans, but I could never understand in the Black Lives Matter movement.
You mean Democrats?
When they went after all the Republicans, it was more the Democrats who were the ones that were prosecutors and persecutors than Republicans.
No question.
But the Democrats got a free pass.
But see, that's because of the ignorance. So you have to understand the ignorance in the black race. You have to understand the continued ignorance and brainwashing of black people in America. Black America has consistently been brainwashed by the white power structure, by the pseudo black power structure, which enforces the lies of the white power structure. I mean, how can you tell me in good conscience that LBJ was the best civil rights president we ever had when he signed a document, and I got the clip, I got the audio. He said, we'll have those niggas voting for the next 200 years. When he signed the Voter Registration Act, we'll have those niggas vote for He knew the Democrats in Texas were segregationists. The Democrats in Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi were all segregationists. When Fannie Lou Hamer went to the Democratic Party and demanded to be recognized, those were white Democrats who wouldn't recognize black folks who wanted to vote Democrat because of who? FDR. That's how dumb black people are. And I would, you know, people used to get on my case and go, well, Charles, they're just not dumb, they just don't know. And I go, wait a minute. Joe Biden, like this black woman who nominated Joe last night, talking about, I love you, Joe. Stupid black woman. Stupid. What you have to ask yourself, where has this woman been? What rock does he? But he a Democrat. He a Democrat. He a Catholic. He a Baptist. That's how black folks are still caught in this childish bullshit. And then when black men like me speak out forcefully, intellectually, intelligently, we're castigated. Oh, you're not black enough. Oh, you're an Uncle Tom. Well, I know an Uncle Tom when I hear an Uncle Tom, but this is the thing. That's another misnomer. Uncle Tom. Uncle Tom was really a hero. He was passive, but he was passive aggressive. He was a very, very much a hero, died a hero. But that's how white folks have changed the narrative for black folks in this country. Black folks are so messed up in this country, Black folks are so messed up in this country that they run around talking about, this is not my country. This is not my country. I'm an African American. And you know what I say to those dumb black people? What African country ever offered you citizenship? What African country has offered black Americans a passport? The answer is absolutely zero, because they all trying to get their black asses to America and looking at your dumb ass running past these opportunities that you have.
Well, you're raising a very important issue, but
which is
you and I talked about. It's not on the agenda. It's that the Democrats, who are the biggest racists, have somehow convinced the black leaders of the NAACP and
well, the black
Sharpton and Justice.
The NAACP. Let's talk about the NAACP. You remember we had something called the Niagara movement, which superseded the NAACP. And they always go, well, the Niagara movement was the forerunner of the NAACP. Well, bullshit. The Niagara movement was founded and controlled by black people. Du Bois comes in with these Jews and say, well, we can fund our causes using this Jewish money. So Jews control the agenda of the NAACP from 1909 to 1975. Jews were the president and the treasurer of that organization until that time. Do you understand? Because I kept wondering, again, Perk, being in college, doing my homework, I kept wondering, why is Du Bois consistently being fired as the editor of The Crisis, which is the paper for the NAACP? Why is he constantly being fired for telling the truth and for addressing controversial topics? And they kept saying, well, the NAACP said it's too controversial for Du Bois he will anger white people. Well, white people were running the NAACP. That's why Frederick Douglass left. Thurgood Marshall. Thurgood Marshall split off the Legal Defense Fund because they wanted to go after and aggressively prosecute civil rights cases, whereas the Jews were like, no, we don't really want to shake the apple cart that much. And my thing is simply this: we have something called the damn Constitution. I always say Martin Luther King was full of crap. If Martin Luther King had been serious about America and about being American and pushing the American agenda, he would have he's talking about fucking Gandhi. Excuse my language. I don't give a crap about Gandhi and his bullshit. He was a damn Indian. He was a damn inferior person as far as I'm concerned. He was a damn British subject. The Brits don't have a damn constitution. We have a consta-damn-tution. And that's what Barry Goldwater talked about when they said, well, Barry Goldwater is voting against civil rights. Barry said, we don't need these civil rights laws. They're all covered in the Constitution. Let's enforce the Constitution. True. But what did dumb whites and the civil, all these, that's to subvert energy, subvert time, subvert enforcement from the damn Constitution. Don't talk to me about a Voter Rights Act. You don't need no Voter Rights Act. You don't need to renew the Voter Rights Act. You need to enforce the laws from Washington, D.C. It's Washington's purview to enforce the law, to enforce the damn Constitution, which is the law of the land, not states' rights. Ooh, Dan, I'm rolling today.
I agree. Hey, you what?
I'm rolling today.
Yes, you are. I'm just sitting back listening. I think it's okay. You're allowed. It's your show most of the time.
But yeah, with you and your questioning
today, it's true. I just think about it, and I didn't watch it all last night. Didn't watch
you can't, man. Jerry Lewis, you missed Jerry Lewis coming out? You missed Jerry Lewis coming out asking for $50?
Yeah, I missed that.
You missed that, yeah.
I used to watch the Jerry Lewis telethon, but I stopped watching that too. Anyway, but I did watch some of the highlights on Monday, and I wasn't impressed. I wasn't impressed with anybody, even my Belle, as Russ calls her. She's still an angrier, older white woman or black woman, and it's just.
Who, Kamala?
No, Michelle.
Oh,
the keynote speaker on Monday night.
Oh man, I tell you, I laughed so hard at Michelle. Oh God, go ahead.
But I didn't watch her whole thing. I mean, I looked at it, and somebody said it looks like a continuous infomercial. And as you pointed out, somebody said they expected Jerry Lewis to come out on the stage somewhere. I wonder if the Republicans are going to do anything different. What do you think?
Well, they have to. It can't be this bad. It can't be. I mean,
the reason why the ratings, I heard Rush say today, the Democrats are saying the reason why the ratings are so bad is well, it's the pandemic. That's why the ratings are so bad.
Oh.
So it's just bizarre, and I listen to what these people are saying and the outright lies that they're talking about.
Well, if Trump had acted quicker, if Trump had acted faster, we wouldn't have had 160,000 deaths in our country. And this is the European flu. It's not the Chinese flu. I mean, you listen to these people and you go, what planet do they live on? Or do they just think we're stupid?
Mm-hmm.
First they condemn the president.
No, they think, oh, yeah, Charles, I'm telling you, the people who were on the stage all this week believe that the American people are stupid, and they have to tell us what to do. I'm absolutely convinced of that. I've been convinced of that for years. That we are seeing. Sally Yates comes on and talks about not upholding the law, and this woman who was the acting attorney general refused a direct order from the president of the United States, which she serves at his discretion, and she's talking about rule of law. I mean, there's an absurdity there, but I just look at it and I don't know what the Democrats got bad news today. I don't know whether you heard this. Target, in this terrible pandemic, announced that their second quarter revenue and earnings were at historical levels during the pandemic. How can that be? And then this morning, when the market opened, Apple became the first
trillion
company in the world that was worth $2 trillion, and that the S&P this morning set another all-time high. The Nasdaq has set new highs, and the Dow's 1,000 or so points away from it. So if you look at the charts, of the movement of the S&P, the Nasdaq, and the Dow Jones, you know what you see? A V-shaped recovery. And what did Donald Trump tell us it was going to be like? A V-shaped recovery.
So this is the deal. This is what tickles me. Michelle, Harris, Biden, they talk about the Obama years and the Obama economy as if it were successful. This is an economy that never grew over 2%, 1.9% a year or a quarter. They never reached over 2% historic lows. This was a president who oversaw the highest unemployment among Black Americans ever, which saw minority health disparity, or Black health disparity increase, which saw Black poverty almost triple. This is a half Black president who was more interested in LGBT rights and LGBT as a civil right, and told Black people they need to pick themselves up, they need to start acting better, and all this like we were children. I mean, he's just like his racist ass grandmama. White. Let me rephrase that. His racist ass white grandmama, because he had to admit that his grandmother was a racist. She didn't like Black men. Well, she loved her Black grandbaby. I get that, and I understand that. But Barack Obama, if he did not have melanin in his skin, he would be called a racist. I call him a racist anyway because his policies were racist. He's a racist. I think that that the man needs to come out of the closet is what I really think. But, that's neither here nor there. But, that's between him and Michelle. But Michelle trying to talk about America being the place that she loves. She didn't do a damn. Let me tell you this. I told you, Perk, that the Obamas bought a house around the corner from where my ex-wife and I used to live. And 1 year, and I'll never forget this, the Obamas didn't come back to Chicago. They stayed in, they went on vacation. They flew over to Hawaii on Air Force One. So that during that vacation, a young black man from Nigeria had just gotten his PhD in econ. A white guy and a Mexican guy killed him for his wallet. 2 blocks from the Obama's house. This is a woman. This is a fat, frumpy ass, evil ass black woman in Michelle Obama, who talked about getting outside and exercising and walking. What about Hanitha? I think her name is Hanitha Dickerson, who was shot while at school. A boy shot her and killed her 2 weeks after she returned from a parade in the inaugural. We had all of this. Everybody's talking about the carnage in Chicago. If you Google Charles Butler Chicago violence, you'll see numerous interviews that I've done over the years on the violence here in Chicago. I was the first person to call for the National Guard to come to Chicago to suppress the violence. The first. Mm-hmm. And I meant it, and I still mean it. And I can tell you this: the people were always and are with me. They want these criminals locked up. They don't want criminal justice reform. See, when I talk about the black elite co-opting black people understand Black Lives Matter when it comes to cops. Black people are just as concerned, if not more concerned, about the carnage that's going on in their neighborhoods than they are about a cop killing another black person. So consequently, what's happening here in Chicago is every time Black Lives Matter to try to assemble and get people riled up, people are coming out saying, take your ass back north, take your ass back to Wisconsin, take your ass back to Indiana. We don't need you here in our community creating havoc and going back home. We know what's going on. We know what time it is. We don't need you here. So as a consequence, let's fast forward real quick, because I know you won't be with me until next week. But Al Sharpton, did you hear that Al Sharpton is calling for a march on Washington?
100,000 people.
Let me say this.
Go ahead. Can I say something about that first?
Sure. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I did an interview this week when I heard about that. And I said, can you please answer this question for me? Is not the Lincoln Memorial part of the national park system? Yes. Is it the national park system that has to issue the permit? Yes. How is it there were no restrictions for distancing and mask in the permit issued to Sharpton for his march? The answer was the bureaucrats have control of it. The deep state still has control of what's going on in Washington, D.C.
Okay, so this is the deal. Here in Chicago. Okay. So, but you have to understand this to understand what's going on. In conjunction with what you're saying, the March on Washington in 1963 was staged by a group of white liberals. It was financed by a group of white liberals. It was the sellout. Martin Luther King, Whitney Young, Roy Wilkins, the NAACP, all sold out to white liberals for that march. What did they get in return? They got $150,000 per group. I got it documented, bro. I got it documented. That's why when I go to sleep at night, I put a big ass lock on my door so you can't come in.
No, I've talked to you and I've written about the fact that 65% in Washington, D.C. 65% of the people who are on the Black Lives Matter streets protesting are white, and they're predominantly white female.
Yeah,
New
but
York, the same thing. California, the same thing. So I said that the white liberals have taken over the control of the Black Lives Matter movement.
they have,
and Antifa.
And so you had you had the original founders of Black Lives Matter. They went to the mayor of DC, to your point. They went to the mayor of DC about 3 weeks ago. They said, we did not ask you to put Black Lives Matter or create a Black Lives Matter park or center. You did that to cater to white liberals. You did not do that for us. And we don't want them using Black Lives Matter, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, that's kind of blown over. But this thing with Sharpton, see, I got to write a piece, and I'm gonna let you edit it for me. But I got to write this piece about the reality, the truth about the Civil Rights March of '63, because I want to put it in a book and all that, but I'm not going to have time to. I just got to get it out there in this piece, because it's important to understand how the civil rights movement got co-opted and King was co-opted, and how guilty King felt after 1963. I mean, if you read his writings, the guy realized that he got sold a bill of goods and gave up control of the civil rights movement to white liberals.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's happening again.
Well, not happening.
It's happening again.
It's always been there. Jesse Jackson was a tool of whom? Remember when Jesse Jackson ran for president in '84? Jesse had the IRS all over his ass. The IRS was all up Jesse's. There was all this talk about Jesse going to jail for his IRS shenanigans. The reason I know is because I was dating a woman who worked at the Operation Push headquarters. And so she was telling me what was going on at Operation Push. So Jesse's out there hawking the black vote, but who's he helping? If he takes black votes away from Mondale, who does that help? Didn't help Reagan. I mean, I'm sorry, wait a minute. It didn't. I said that wrong. It didn't help Mondale. It hurt Mondale and helped Reagan. So the white women in San Diego, where I was, which was a Reagan headquarters, they used to run around saying, "Run, Jesse, run," and that migrated from that office. I'm serious. It migrated from that office to the mainstream, "Run, Jesse, run," because everyone knew who was involved. If Jesse runs, that's going to take votes away from Walter Mondale, and that's exactly what he did. And then his tax. Well,
they're saying this.
His tax problems
they're saying
went
the
away.
same thing about Kanye West right now, that he's running to take votes away from Joe Biden.
Really?
You haven't heard that?
Yeah, but do you think that's true?
Oh, yeah.
But do you think that's true?
I think that's what pops up. I'll tell you what I think is true.
What's that? Which
will be a first on your show. I think it's a strategy between Kanye and Donald Trump.
But, this is the thing that gets me. I love this shit. I love it. He said, Donald Trump said, "Hey, what the hell have you got to lose?" Donald Trump is the only president. Donald Trump is the only political person that came out and said, "Hey, why are Black Americans living in shitholes? They should not have to live in shithole ass." What did Elijah Cummings say? Mr. President, my district is not a shithole. The hell if it ain't. Elijah Cummings' district. Let me. Oh, wait. Don't laugh yet. Let me finish. Elijah Cummings' district. You remember that show, the Wire? You never saw the show The Wire, right? Anyway, there was a show called The Wire, and it was based in Baltimore, and they had open drug dens and the whole 9 yards. That is Elijah Cummings' district, dude. That's Elijah Cummings' district. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You
I
know,
understand that, and you know, and I think if I recall correctly, Charles, didn't didn't the president say rat
rat
invested
infested.
uh,
Yeah,
community,
yeah.
and Cummings said, "Not, no, it's not mine." And then somebody on the board in Baltimore talked about the terrible problem they have with rats in
Man,
Baltimore.
it's horrible.
Um,
We used to have that same.
yeah, and it. I'm sorry.
We used to have that same problem here in Chicago. We cleaned it up though, but I tell you, man, it took a lot of work and it took a lot of money. But these politicians, these Democrat politicians, have totally abandoned black communities. In fact, the mayor here, she's so stupid. She's telling she's telling law-abiding citizens that if you protect yourself against the looters, against the protesters, you will be persecuted. You will be prosecuted. Excuse me. You'll be prosecuted. You know what? She's lost her damn mind. People are like, we don't give a damn
Well,
about these law-breaking people.
that's assumed, Charles, that she had one to start with.
What do you mean?
You said she lost her mind. I said that assumes that she
Yeah,
had one to lose to start.
exactly, man. She's bad.
So, I mean, she got elected for two reasons. One, she was a woman. Two, she was black.
No, actually,
and there's no third.
Nobody really wanted the job, man. That's how she got elected. Nobody really wanted the job. Nobody wanted the job. That was the issue. And the people she was running against, like I said, they didn't want the job. Hey, Dan, we could go on for another hour, but we're at the end of this hour.
Yes.
So thank you so much, man, for spending time with me. Appreciate you. We'll do this again
You're
next
welcome,
week.
sir.
All right.
Talk to you soon.
Yes, sir.
Take care.
You too. Hey, folks.
Bye.
Bye-bye, Dan. Getting ready to end the show. So have fun. Tune in tomorrow. We're going to be ranting and raving and doing our thing. Hey.